Manipulation isn't just a tool for the scheming or the cruel, it's a subtle art, a game of influence that can be played by anyone, from politicians to close friends, from colleagues to family members. Machiavelli, in his infamous work, The Prince, doesn't teach us how to be cruel. He teaches us how to see through the masks people wear. And when it comes to manipulation, those masks can be dangerously convincing. Imagine this. You're in a conversation, and someone says something that feels slightly off. Maybe they make a backhanded compliment or suggest a course of action that seems to benefit you, but deep down, it just doesn't sit right. That feeling, that gut instinct, is your mind picking up on manipulation. But why do so many people miss these signs? Machiavelli would say it's because we want to believe in the good intentions of others. We want to think that those we care about have our best interests at heart. But that desire for trust makes us blind to the truth. Manipulation often hides behind a veil of kindness and concern. The manipulator cloaks their intentions in sweet words, pretending to be your ally while subtly steering you toward their own agenda. One of the classic tactics Machiavelli describes is the art of deception. A manipulator doesn't outright lie. Instead, they present a version of the truth that serves their purpose. For instance, instead of saying, "I want you to do this for me," they might say, "I thought of you because you're so good at handling things like this." Notice the subtle shift? You're not being asked to do something, you're being flattered into it. Machiavelli warns us that those who seek power will use whatever means necessary to achieve it. But power doesn't always look like a crown or a throne. Sometimes it looks like a trusted friend. It looks like a lover whispering in your ear. It looks like a boss offering a promotion with strings attached. And that's what makes manipulation so dangerous. It's wrapped in familiarity. Another Machiavellian tactic is playing the victim. Have you ever confronted someone about their behavior only to have them turn the tables on you? Suddenly, they're the ones hurt, misunderstood, or wronged. This tactic is designed to shift the focus away from their behavior and make you question your own actions. Am I overreacting? Did I misunderstand them? This doubt is exactly what the manipulator wants. It's a form of psychological control, making you question your perception of reality. Machiavelli also discusses the importance of maintaining appearances. A skilled manipulator knows that image is everything. They will go out of their way to appear kind, generous, even self-sacrificing, especially in public. Why? Because it disarms you. When someone is publicly adored, you're less likely to suspect them of having ulterior motives. It's the classic wolf in sheep's clothing scenario, and it works because most people judge others by what they see on the surface, not by what they feel in their gut. But here's where Machiavelli's wisdom becomes invaluable. He teaches us that we don't have to become manipulators to defend ourselves. We just need to learn how to see through the masks. Start by questioning intentions. When someone is overly complimentary or insistent, ask yourself, what do they stand to gain from this? This doesn't mean you have to become cynical or distrustful, but it does mean you should stay aware. Machiavelli believed that awareness is the first step to power. Another essential skill is emotional detachment. Manipulators thrive on emotional reactions. If they can get you angry, sad, or guilty, they can steer your actions. Machiavelli would advise staying calm, composed, and observant. If someone is trying to provoke a reaction, pause, take a breath. Think before you speak. When you respond rather than react, you retain control. Lastly, Machiavelli teaches us to master the art of silence. The manipulator thrives on information, your fears, your desires, your insecurities. The more they know, the more they can use against you. But if you stay silent, if you refuse to reveal too much, you deprive them of ammunition. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. Sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing at all. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into Machiavelli's insights on how to identify the different types of manipulators and the specific tactics they use to gain control. From charmers to guilt trippers, from gaslighters to emotional predators, Machiavelli saw them all, and he knew exactly how to expose their strategies. Stay tuned. Part 2. The Manipulator's Playbook. Identifying the Archetypes. Machiavelli didn't just observe power, he dissected it. In The Prince, he describes the various types of rulers and power players, each with their own strategies and methods of manipulation. But these archetypes aren't limited to kings and princes. They exist all around us, from the office to the dinner table. Understanding these archetypes is like having a map of the battlefield. It's the first step in dismantling their control. First, there's the charmer. This is the person who uses flattery as their weapon of choice. They're the ones who tell you exactly what you want to hear, who make you feel like you're the most important person in the room. They shower you with praise, compliments, and attention. But behind the facade, they're gathering information, your weaknesses, your desires, your insecurities. Machiavelli would say that charmers are the most dangerous because they hide their intentions behind warmth and charisma. They make you feel seen, heard, and valued, but only as long as it serves their agenda. Next, we have the victim. This manipulator plays on your sympathy using guilt as a powerful tool. They twist the narrative, making themselves appear helpless, mistreated, or misunderstood. You feel compelled to help them, to make things right, to prove you're a good person. Machiavelli would point out that the victim is a master of subtlety. They never ask for what they want directly. Instead, they imply it through sighs, tears, or dramatic stories of how everyone has wronged them. And if you don't comply, you become just another villain in their story. Then, there's the puppet master. Unlike the charmer or the victim, this manipulator operates from the shadows. They plant ideas in your mind without you even realizing it. They use questions like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Or, "Wouldn't it be better if you did it this way?" to subtly steer you toward their desired outcome. Machiavelli would describe them as the ones who pull strings from behind the curtain, orchestrating events to their advantage while keeping their hands clean. They avoid direct confrontation, preferring to let others do their dirty work. The gaslighter is another key archetype. This person distorts reality to make you question your own perception. They say things like, "I never said that," or "You're being too sensitive," even when you know what you heard or felt. Their goal is to make you doubt your own sanity, to destabilize your sense of self. Machiavelli would see gaslighters as the ultimate power players, those who can rewrite history and convince you that your own memories are false. Once you start doubting your own mind, they have complete control. But the most cunning of all might be the savior. This is the person who positions themselves as your rescuer, your protector, your knight in shining armor. They step in when you're vulnerable, offering support, guidance, or a shoulder to cry on. But beneath the surface, they're creating dependency. Machiavelli would say that the savior is the wolf disguised as a shepherd. They want you to believe that you can't function without them, that they're the only one who truly understands you. Once you're hooked, they start to pull the strings. Recognizing these archetypes is crucial, but it's not enough to simply identify them. You need to understand the tactics they use to maintain control. For instance, the charmer uses mirroring. They reflect back your desires, your opinions, your values, making you feel like you've found a soulmate. They agree with everything you say, making you feel seen and understood. But it's a trap. Once they've gained your trust, they begin to plant their own agenda, subtly influencing your decisions under the guise of shared values. The victim uses emotional blackmail. They hint that if you don't comply, you're abandoning them, betraying them, or proving that you don't care. They use phrases like, "I thought you were different," or "After everything I've done for you," to manipulate you into feeling guilty. Machiavelli would say that the victim is the most insidious because they use your own empathy against you. The puppet master employs triangulation, pitting people against each other to maintain control. They might say, "So-and-so said you were unreliable," even if it's a complete lie, just to sow seeds of doubt and division. They thrive on chaos and confusion because it keeps you off balance, always guessing, always looking over your shoulder. The gaslighter's primary tactic is denial and reversal. They deny things they said or did and then accuse you of overreacting. They twist reality so convincingly that you start to question your own memory. Machiavelli would say that gaslighters are masters of the mind game, able to rewrite the past with such conviction that you start to believe it. Lastly, the savior employs dependency and isolation. They slowly cut you off from others, making you reliant on them for emotional support, financial stability, or even basic decision-making. They frame it as caring, as protecting you from the bad influences in your life. But in reality, they're creating a web that's nearly impossible to escape. So what would Machiavelli advise? He would say that awareness is your first weapon. By recognizing these archetypes and understanding their tactics, you strip them of their power. You see through the mask. You catch the manipulator in the act. And once you're aware, you can decide how to respond. whether it's confronting them, setting boundaries, or walking away entirely. But the key, as Machiavelli would remind us, is not to become cynical or paranoid. The goal isn't to view everyone as a potential manipulator. It's to stay vigilant, to keep your eyes open, and to trust your instincts. In the next part, we'll explore how Machiavelli's insights can help you build mental armor. Strategies for protecting your mind and emotions from manipulation without losing your empathy or compassion. Stay tuned. Part 3. Building your mental armor. Strategies against manipulation. Machiavelli was a strategist, a master of psychological warfare who understood that the greatest defense against manipulation is not brute strength, but mental fortitude. To protect yourself, you don't need to become ruthless. You need to become aware, discerning, and resilient. Think of this as constructing a psychological fortress, one brick at a time. First and foremost, Machiavelli would tell you to know thyself. Why? Because manipulators prey on the unaware. If you don't understand your own triggers, insecurities, and desires, you become a walking target. Imagine a con artist trying to sell you a fake product. If you're desperate for what they're selling, you're more likely to fall for the scam. Similarly, if you're unaware of your own emotional vulnerabilities, you're more likely to be manipulated. Take a moment to reflect. What are your biggest fears? What do you crave validation for? What compliments make you feel seen and valued? Machiavelli would advise you to list these things out. When you know your own weaknesses, you can guard them. The manipulator's power comes from identifying what you don't see in yourself, the unhealed wounds, the hidden insecurities. Once you bring those to light, they lose their leverage. Next, master the art of emotional detachment. Manipulators thrive on emotional reactions. They want you to react impulsively, to lash out, to crumble under pressure. Machiavelli understood that those who can remain calm in the face of provocation hold the true power. How do you practice this? Pause before responding. When someone says something that feels like a jab, resist the urge to snap back. Take a deep breath, count to 5, respond thoughtfully, not reactively. Ask yourself, what is their intent? Instead of immediately defending yourself, consider why they said what they said. Are they trying to provoke you? Are they attempting to manipulate you? Detachment gives you a moment to assess the situation strategically. Stay grounded in facts, not emotions. When manipulators use gaslighting tactics, denying what they said, twisting reality, ground yourself in objective facts. Write down conversations, keep records, and refer to them if necessary. This prevents you from second-guessing your own memory. Another key principle in Machiavelli's arsenal is controlled disengagement. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some people use manipulation to bait you into endless arguments, to drain your energy and keep you distracted. Machiavelli would tell you to conserve your resources, walk away from pointless conflicts, reserve your energy for strategic moves, not petty disputes. Machiavelli also emphasizes the importance of gathering intelligence. In The Prince, he speaks of the need to observe, to study people's behavior, to know who you're dealing with before making a move. In your everyday life, this means paying attention to patterns. Does someone consistently play the victim when confronted? Does a colleague always give you backhanded compliments? Is there a friend who only reaches out when they need something? Patterns reveal intention. If you notice the same manipulative behavior over time, it's not a coincidence, it's a strategy. Machiavelli would advise you to keep a mental notebook of these patterns. You don't have to act on them immediately, but being aware puts you in a position of power. Another crucial tactic is neutral communication. Manipulators often try to provoke strong emotional responses: guilt, anger, frustration. But if you respond neutrally, you deprive them of their desired reaction. Instead of saying, "I can't believe you would do this to me," say, "I'm noticing that you did X. Help me understand why." Instead of saying, "You're making me feel terrible," say, "I feel frustrated when X happens." Neutral communication keeps the focus on facts, not feelings. It forces the manipulator to confront their behavior without giving them emotional ammunition to twist the narrative. Machiavelli would also remind you to control the narrative. Manipulators are storytellers. They craft narratives where they are the hero, the victim, or the misunderstood saint. But you have the power to tell your own story. When someone tries to paint you as unreasonable, calmly restate the facts. When they accuse you of overreacting, point out the specific behavior you're responding to. When they twist the narrative to make you feel guilty, stay grounded in your truth. Remember, Machiavelli said, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Your goal is not to convince everyone of your innocence or virtue, it's to stay centered in your reality, regardless of the manipulator's narrative. Lastly, create psychological distance. This is the space where you can step back, assess, and strategize without getting entangled in someone else's emotional web. It's not about being cold or detached, it's about maintaining clarity. Physical distance. Take a walk, leave the room, or step outside. A change of environment can clear your mind. Emotional distance. Remind yourself that their words are a reflection of them, not you. Their behavior is not your responsibility. Mental distance. Visualize a protective barrier around you, a mental fortress that keeps out their negativity. Machiavelli understood that those who can maintain perspective, who can detach without disengaging, are the true power players. They don't get swept up in emotional storms. They remain anchored, observing, calculating, ready to act, but only when the time is right. In the next part, we will dive into the art of strategic influence, exploring how to subtly counter manipulation without confrontation. Machiavelli wasn't just about defense, he was a master of influence, a tactician who knew how to turn the tables on those who sought to control him. Part 4. Turning the tables. How to outsmart manipulators without confrontation. Machiavelli was a master of subtlety. He knew that brute force and open confrontation often lead to unnecessary conflict and unintended consequences. Instead, he advocated for strategic influence, a method of outsmarting manipulators without ever appearing aggressive or defensive. This is the art of turning the tables, using their tactics against them, but with finesse. First, let's talk about subtle reversals. When a manipulator tries to twist the truth or gaslight you, direct confrontation rarely works. Instead, you can use their own words against them. Machiavelli would advise a method called strategic mirroring. If they say, "I never said that," you can calmly reply, "That's interesting because earlier you mentioned XYZ, did I misunderstand?" If they accuse you of being overly sensitive, say, "I hear you, can you help me understand what you meant by that comment?" This tactic is not about proving them wrong, but about subtly making them confront their own contradictions. You're not attacking, you're reflecting. This makes it difficult for them to continue the manipulation without exposing themselves. Next, there's the power of redirecting attention. Manipulators thrive on controlling the narrative. They want to keep you focused on their version of events, on their emotional turmoil, or their victimhood. Machiavelli would advise you to break this cycle by subtly shifting the focus. If they're playing the victim, ask, "What would you like to do to resolve this situation?" If they're projecting blame onto you, redirect with, "What do you think would help both of us move forward positively?" By redirecting attention to solutions, you remove their power to control the emotional tone of the conversation. You become the one steering the narrative, not them. Machiavelli also understood the value of strategic silence. Silence is powerful. It creates space for the manipulator to fill, often revealing more than they intended. When someone tries to provoke you, instead of reacting, try saying nothing. Maintain eye contact. Let the silence stretch. If they accuse you of being selfish, simply look at them without responding. If they attempt to guilt trip you, take a deep breath and remain silent. The longer the silence, the more uncomfortable they will become. Machiavelli knew that people fear the void. They will often speak to fill it, inadvertently exposing their true intentions. You're not just holding back, you're strategically allowing them to reveal themselves. Another tactic Machiavelli would recommend is feigning ignorance. This is especially effective with puppet masters who try to plant seeds of doubt or manipulate you through indirect comments. Instead of calling them out, you can play naive. "I'm not sure what you mean. Can you explain that again?" That's an interesting perspective. Can you clarify how that relates to the situation? Feigning ignorance disarms them. They expect you to react emotionally, to become defensive, or to argue. Instead, you act as though you don't understand their manipulation, forcing them to either backtrack or over-explain, both of which expose their tactics. Machiavelli would also advise leveraging third-party confirmation. Manipulators often isolate you, making you doubt your own perception. A powerful counter tactic is to bring in a neutral third party to verify facts or clarify misunderstandings. Let's loop in Jane. She was there too, and she might remember what was said. I'd love to get another perspective on this. Let's ask someone we both trust. This not only shifts the power dynamic, but also signals to the manipulator that you are not as easily controlled as they thought. You're expanding the narrative beyond their control, making it harder for them to twist the truth. Now let's discuss the concept of controlled agreeability. Machiavelli was a master at appearing agreeable without actually conceding ground. This is particularly effective with charmers and saviors, those who try to manipulate through praise or helpfulness. If a charmer says, "You're so good at handling things, I knew you'd take care of it," respond with, "Thank you. What do you suggest we do next?" If a savior insists, "You need me to help you with this," reply, "I appreciate that. Let me think about it and get back to you." You're acknowledging their statement without actually committing to anything. You remain polite and agreeable, but firmly non-committal. This keeps them from cornering you into obligations you didn't agree to. Machiavelli would also recommend the tactic of intentional misdirection. This is about redirecting the manipulator's focus without directly challenging them. If someone is pressuring you or trying to provoke a reaction, you can deflect with a question or change of subject. "I hear you. By the way, did you hear about the new project we're working on? That's an interesting point. What do you think about XYZ?" This may seem trivial, but it breaks their rhythm. Manipulators thrive on keeping you emotionally engaged. Misdirection disrupts that flow, forcing them to recalibrate and potentially lose their grip on the conversation. Lastly, Machiavelli would stress the importance of controlled disengagement. Not every battle is worth fighting. If someone is determined to manipulate or provoke you, sometimes the most strategic move is to simply walk away, but do so in a way that maintains your power. Instead of storming off in anger, say, "I appreciate your perspective. I need some time to think it over." If they're pushing for a reaction, calmly respond, "Let's revisit this later when we're both feeling clearer." You're not avoiding the confrontation, you're deferring it to a time and place of your choosing. This robs the manipulator of the immediate gratification they seek and allows you to maintain control of your own emotional state. In the next part, we'll explore Machiavelli's concept of strategic influence, not just defending against manipulation, but using subtle tactics to turn the tables and influence the manipulator without ever appearing aggressive or defensive. Part 5. Strategic influence. The art of turning manipulation to your advantage. Machiavelli was not merely a defender against manipulation. He was a master at using influence to subtly shift power dynamics in his favor. In The Prince, he speaks of the art of appearing virtuous while concealing strategic intent, a skill that can be applied to counter manipulative behavior without direct confrontation. Imagine this. You're dealing with a manipulator who constantly undermines you in meetings by making passive-aggressive comments disguised as jokes. Instead of confronting them outright and risking appearing defensive, Machiavelli would advise a more subtle, strategic approach, one that uses influence to subtly redirect the power dynamic. First, consider the tactic of framing the narrative. Manipulators love to control the narrative, painting themselves as the victim or the hero. But you can shift the frame by subtly changing the context. Instead of responding defensively to a passive-aggressive comment, you could say, "I love how you always find humor in tense situations. It's a great way to lighten the mood. What do you think about XYZ?" You're not only disarming them with a compliment, but you're also redirecting the conversation back to the topic at hand. You've reframed their attempt to belittle you as a benign attempt at humor, depriving them of their power to provoke. Next, there's the art of strategic reciprocity. Machiavelli understood that people are more likely to feel indebted to those who do them favors, but he also knew that favors could be a tool for influence. If a manipulator asks you for a favor, consider fulfilling it, but strategically. Say yes, but attach a subtle, non-confrontational request of your own. For instance, "I'd be happy to help with that report. Could you assist me with XYZ in return?" This not only balances the power dynamic, but also establishes that you're not someone who can be taken advantage of without consequence. You're setting a precedent that favors are reciprocal, not one-sided. Another powerful tactic Machiavelli would advocate is leveraging social proof. Manipulators often isolate their targets, making them doubt their own reality. By subtly involving others, you can diffuse their influence. If someone is spreading false rumors about you, you could casually mention in a group setting, "I've heard some interesting things lately. What do you all think about XYZ?" This brings the manipulation into the open without directly accusing anyone. It forces the manipulator to either double down and expose themselves or retreat to avoid scrutiny. Machiavelli also employed the art of contradictory statements. This is a technique where you agree with the manipulator's statement in a way that subtly undermines their intent. If someone says, "You're always so sensitive," you could respond, "You're right. I do value open communication, and that's why I'm glad you're being honest right now." You're agreeing with their premise while simultaneously redirecting the conversation toward constructive communication. You're acknowledging their statement without accepting their intended insult. One of Machiavelli's more nuanced strategies is controlled vulnerability. This may seem counterintuitive, but revealing a minor flaw or shortcoming can actually strengthen your position. If a manipulator accuses you of being too controlling, you could say, "You know, you're right. I do sometimes get too focused on the details. It's something I'm working on. Thanks for pointing that out." By owning a minor flaw, you disarm their attack and regain control of the narrative. You're showing that you're self-aware and secure, qualities that manipulators find difficult to exploit. Machiavelli would also advocate for strategic absence. Sometimes the best way to counter a manipulator is to temporarily withdraw your attention and energy. If someone is trying to provoke you or pull you into unnecessary drama, step back. Delay your response. Go silent for a while. This not only deprives them of the emotional reaction they seek, but also gives you time to reassess and strategize your next move. Another key tactic is preemptive framing. This involves anticipating the manipulator's moves and setting the context before they have a chance to act. If you know that a colleague is likely to try and take credit for your work, you could say in a meeting, "I'm really excited to share the progress we've made on this project. It was a collaborative effort, but I'm particularly proud of the work I put into XYZ." You're establishing ownership without appearing defensive, making it harder for them to steal the spotlight later. Machiavelli was also a master of strategic flattery. This doesn't mean groveling or false praise. It's about subtly aligning yourself with those in power to gain influence. If a manipulator holds a position of authority, you might say, "I really respect how you handle difficult conversations. I'd love to get your insight on how you'd approach XYZ." This not only strokes their ego, but also positions you as someone who is seeking guidance, not confrontation. It's a way of gaining influence without appearing threatening. Finally, there's the technique of calculated agreement. Manipulators often expect resistance. By agreeing with them, but on your terms, you can disarm them and redirect the conversation. If they say, "You're being too sensitive," you could respond, "You might be right. I do care a lot about how we communicate. How can we make sure both of our concerns are addressed?" You're not denying their statement. You're reframing it in a way that shifts the focus to constructive dialogue. Machiavelli's strategies were not about brute force or overt aggression. They were about subtlety, influence, and control. The key to turning the tables on manipulators is to remain calm, composed, and calculated. You're not seeking to dominate or humiliate. You're seeking to regain control of the narrative and protect your mental and emotional well-being. In the next part, we will explore how to maintain control over your emotions even in the most intense situations, the art of staying cool under pressure. Machiavelli knew that the one who can maintain calm in the face of chaos is the one who ultimately holds the power. Part 6. The power of emotional control, staying calm under manipulative pressure. Machiavelli believed that the one who maintains emotional control in tense situations holds the true power. Emotional reactivity is the playground of manipulators. They thrive on provoking you, pushing your buttons, and steering you into emotional responses that serve their agenda. If they can make you angry, defensive, or anxious, they can control the narrative. Therefore, the art of staying calm under pressure is not just a defensive tactic. It's a strategic weapon. Imagine this. You're in a heated conversation with a colleague who is clearly trying to provoke you. They're raising their voice, making pointed remarks, and using personal attacks. The natural reaction is to retaliate, to defend yourself. But Machiavelli would advise a different approach: strategic emotional detachment. What does that look like in practice? Instead of responding emotionally, you maintain a calm, neutral expression. You let them finish without interrupting, allowing them to expend their emotional energy. You respond in a measured tone. "I hear what you're saying. Let me take a moment to consider that." This technique serves multiple purposes. First, It diffuses the immediate tension. Second, it forces the manipulator to recalibrate, as they were expecting a reactive response. And third, it gives you time to think strategically rather than react impulsively. Another Machiavellian tactic is controlled pausing. In emotionally charged situations, silence can be more powerful than words. When someone makes a provocative statement, instead of immediately responding, take a deliberate pause, count to 3, breathe deeply. This brief silence serves as a pattern interrupt. It creates a moment of discomfort for the manipulator, making them question whether they have overplayed their hand. It also allows you to recalibrate your response. You're not reacting emotionally, you're responding strategically. Machiavelli also understood the power of reframing insults as information. Manipulators often use personal attacks to destabilize you. They want you to become defensive, to lose your composure. But what if, instead of taking their insults personally, you viewed them as valuable information? If they say, "You're always so sensitive," instead of reacting defensively, respond with, "Interesting. Can you tell me more about why you think that?" This shifts the dynamic. You're not defending yourself, you're extracting information. You're forcing them to justify their words, which often reveals their true intentions. Next, consider the art of emotional neutralization. This is the practice of detaching your ego from the situation. Machiavelli knew that ego is a manipulator's primary target. If they can make you feel personally attacked, they can control you. But what if you chose not to take anything personally? Imagine you are an observer of the situation, not a participant. You're not emotionally invested in the outcome. You're simply analyzing the interaction as if you were studying a chess game. By maintaining this mental distance, you deprive the manipulator of the emotional ammunition they need to destabilize you. You remain calm, objective, and in control. Machiavelli also advocated for cognitive reframing, the practice of viewing manipulation attempts as opportunities to learn and grow. Instead of seeing a manipulative person as a threat, view them as a teacher. What are they trying to achieve by provoking you? What does their behavior reveal about their insecurities, fears, or desires? How can you use this information to anticipate their next move? When you approach manipulation from a strategic perspective, it becomes less threatening and more manageable. You're not just reacting to their tactics, you're studying them, analyzing them, and preparing a calculated response. Now, let's discuss the concept of controlled transparency. Machiavelli understood that revealing a small, controlled amount of vulnerability can actually increase your power in a situation. If a manipulator accuses you of being overly sensitive, you could respond with, "You know, I do take things to heart sometimes. It's something I'm working on." This disarms them. You've acknowledged a flaw without giving them the power to exploit it. You're controlling the narrative, presenting yourself as self-aware and emotionally secure. Another powerful tool in Machiavelli's arsenal was emotional echoing. This involves reflecting back the manipulator's emotional tone without becoming emotionally invested. If they are being condescending, respond with a calm, measured tone. "I hear that you're frustrated. How can we resolve this in a constructive way?" You're not mirroring their hostility, you're mirroring their emotional state in a way that redirects the conversation toward a productive outcome. Machiavelli also stressed the importance of the exit strategy. Sometimes the most strategic move is to walk away, but do so in a way that maintains your power and composure. If a conversation is escalating and you feel yourself losing emotional control, calmly say, "I think it would be best if we revisit this conversation later when we're both feeling calmer." You're not storming off in anger, you're taking a calculated exit, signaling that you are the one in control of the situation. In emotionally charged situations, Machiavelli would advise the use of calm assertion. This is the art of speaking firmly and clearly without raising your voice or displaying visible frustration. "I understand your point. However, I disagree, and here's why. I hear what you're saying, but I need some time to think it over." You're not allowing the manipulator to dictate the emotional tone of the conversation. You're setting boundaries while maintaining your composure. Lastly, consider emotion as strategy. Machiavelli knew that appearing calm, even when you're internally feeling anger or frustration, is a powerful tactic. Your calmness can provoke the manipulator, causing them to overreact or reveal their true intentions. If they are visibly frustrated and you remain calm, it amplifies their emotional state, making them appear irrational and unbalanced in contrast to your composed demeanor. Machiavelli's philosophy was not about suppressing emotions, but about mastering them. Emotional control is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to choose how and when to express it strategically. By maintaining your emotional center, you not only protect yourself from manipulation, but also position yourself as the calm, composed voice of reason, a position of undeniable power. In the final part, we'll bring all these strategies together, exploring how to integrate Machiavellian tactics into your daily life without compromising your integrity or becoming manipulative yourself. The key is to remain strategic, aware, and above all, in control. Part 7. Integrating Machiavelli's tactics, using power without losing yourself. Machiavelli's teachings can feel like a double-edged sword. On one side, they offer a potent arsenal of tactics to defend against manipulation and assert control. On the other, they can seem ruthless, even immoral. How do you walk the line between strategic thinking and ethical integrity? How do you use power effectively without becoming the very manipulator you seek to avoid? Machiavelli himself would argue that power is neutral. It's neither good nor evil. It's the intention behind the use of power that defines its moral character. Therefore, the key to integrating Machiavellian tactics into your life is to remain grounded in your values while still operating strategically. Let's start with the principle of self-awareness as power. Before you can effectively use any tactic, you must first understand yourself, your triggers, fears, insecurities, and desires. Ask yourself, what situations make me feel powerless? Why? Which people in my life consistently provoke me to react impulsively? What patterns of behavior do I keep repeating? And what underlying beliefs drive them? Machiavelli's greatest strength was his ability to observe human nature without illusion. He understood that self-deception is the most dangerous form of manipulation because it blinds you to your own vulnerabilities. By becoming brutally honest with yourself, you not only protect against external manipulation but also against self-sabotage. Next, there's the concept of selective transparency. Machiavelli warned against revealing your entire hand to anyone, even those you trust. This doesn't mean you should be deceitful. Rather, it means you should be intentional about what you reveal and when. If a colleague asks about your long-term career plans, you don't have to lay out every detail. Instead, provide a carefully crafted answer that aligns with your current objectives but doesn't give away your ultimate strategy. Machiavelli would advise saying something like, "I'm focused on expanding my skill set in X area right now," rather than, "I'm planning to take your job next year." This approach keeps you unpredictable, and unpredictability is a form of power. It prevents others from plotting against you because they can't fully anticipate your moves. Machiavelli was also a master of controlled conflict. Contrary to popular belief, he did not advocate for constant aggression. Instead, he believed that controlled conflict could be used strategically to assert dominance and expose hidden agendas. Imagine a colleague who consistently undermines you in meetings. Instead of confronting them outright, Machiavelli would suggest setting a trap. The next time they attempt to discredit you, ask a calculated question that forces them to clarify their position. For instance, "I'm curious. Can you explain how your suggestion aligns with the company's goals?" This shifts the focus onto them, compelling them to defend their stance without you appearing confrontational. Controlled conflict is not about winning the battle. It's about gathering information, revealing motives, and strategically positioning yourself as the calm, composed party. Machiavelli also stressed the importance of strategic alliances. Power is not wielded alone, it is built through carefully chosen alliances. But alliances are not friendships, they are transactional relationships. Identify the key players in your environment: who holds influence, who controls information, who has access to resources you need. Forge alliances not by flattering or placating, but by presenting mutually beneficial opportunities. I noticed you're working on the XYZ project. I have some insights from a previous project that might be useful. Would you be open to a quick discussion? Machiavelli would advise treating these alliances as temporary, not permanent. Circumstances change, and today's ally could become tomorrow's adversary. The goal is not blind loyalty, but strategic alignment. Another powerful tactic is strategic withdrawal. Machiavelli understood that retreating is not the same as losing. In fact, a well-timed withdrawal can preserve your power and protect your reputation. If you find yourself in a situation where a manipulator is escalating tension, Machiavelli would suggest a controlled exit. "I can see this discussion is getting heated. Let's revisit it tomorrow when we're both in a clearer headspace. This move does two things. It diffuses the immediate conflict and gives you time to strategize your response. It also sends a clear message. You are in control of when and how you engage. Machiavelli also believed in the power of anticipatory strategy, the art of preparing for potential conflicts before they arise. He likened it to fortifying a castle before the enemy attacks. Identify potential threats and consider how you would counter them. Develop contingency plans for worst-case scenarios. Position yourself in such a way that even if you are attacked, you already have strategic defenses in place. For example, if you suspect a colleague is attempting to sabotage your project, start documenting your contributions meticulously. Keep records of emails, meetings, and decisions. This not only protects you, but also provides leverage should a conflict arise. Machiavelli also recognized the importance of controlled perception. People see what you show them, not necessarily who you are. Therefore, presenting a calm, composed exterior can be a powerful deterrent against manipulation. If someone attempts to provoke you, remain impassive. If they spread rumors about you, remain composed and consistent in your actions. Over time, people will see through the manipulator's tactics and recognize your stability as a sign of strength. Lastly, Machiavelli emphasized the principle of purposeful ruthlessness. This does not mean being cruel or vindictive. It means being willing to take decisive action when necessary. If a manipulator has repeatedly crossed boundaries despite your attempts to de-escalate, Machiavelli would advise a decisive move. This could mean calling out their behavior publicly in a calm, composed manner. I'd like to clarify some misconceptions about my role in the project. Or it could mean cutting ties with someone whose continued presence undermines your position. Ruthlessness, in Machiavellian terms, is not about harming others. It's about protecting your interests without hesitation. It's about recognizing when a situation has escalated to the point where decisive action is necessary and not shying away from it. In conclusion, integrating Machiavelli's tactics is not about becoming a manipulator yourself. It's about recognizing the power dynamics at play and strategically positioning yourself in a way that protects your interests while maintaining your integrity. It's about observing without illusion, acting without hesitation, and always being one step ahead. Power, as Machiavelli saw it, is not inherently good or evil. It is a tool, and like any tool, its effectiveness depends on the hand that wields it. The question is not whether you should use power, it's how you choose to use it. The next time you find yourself in a challenging situation, ask yourself, what would Machiavelli do? And then, make your move, calmly, strategically, and with unwavering intention. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. It really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.